Hello, students. Tonight, let's talk today, depending on when you're doing this, let's talk about consumer law and insurance, two separate legal concepts. First, consumer law. What we're going to talk about is basically protections that you as a consumer have. Now, when I say consumer, as you're going to see later on, I'm not talking about two sophisticated businesses dealing with one another. No, these are more protections, in your home. You're an individual consumer. You're not a big corporation. So if Apple's buying something from me as a vendor, consumer law does not apply. However, if I am just going to buy an Apple computer for home use, I'm a consumer and the law gives me various protections. Here's consumer law areas. For example, advertising protections to me, label and packaging. For example, when I go to the grocery store, it's got to have the nutrition on it. So that's a consumer law. Sales, I have protections on if I can return something or not, or if it has warranties. Credit protection, product safety. If I sell something in the U.S., it has got to comply. It must comply with safety rules for that particular industry. For example, if I'm selling baby seats to you as a consumer, I sure as heck have to follow the rules on I think the National Transportation Association puts out rules on baby seat safety. Food and drug, we talked about that. So let's get into some more specifics. Most of these rules are federal, and most of them are promulgated by agencies as opposed to the legislature, the Congress. What do I mean? Well, Congress, the House and the Senate will come up with a law saying the National Transportation Association is to promulgate rules and regulations applying to the safety of baby seats. Then they come up with 300 pages of rules and regulations on making sure baby car seats are safe. So that's when we say, well, agency rules are generally what the consumer laws, most of them are. Deceptive advertising, you can't, I have protection. Apple, when they sell a computer to me, they can't say it has such and such RAM when it only has a lesser amount. So, I mean, there can't be deceptive advertising. And I have federal protections from the Federal Trade Commission, which again is a federal regulatory agency. Deceptive advertising, I'll let you read through that, but basically, you can't just give half truths. You can't say, oh, studies prove that, 9 out of 10 dentists absolutely say this. Well, there better darn well be a study that supports that instead of you going and asking 10 of your friends that are dentists what they think. Bait and switch. A company cannot, and you see this happen from time to time, but I can't, Best Buy might be a good example. Hey, come on in, I'm selling a TV for $100. And then when you come in, I don't have that TV, $300 TV. That's a bait and switch, and that's it's unlawful. Now, companies, I'm not saying that Best Buy does that, but often Best Buy might say, I'm selling such and such TV for 100, but limit 5 per store. And if that's in the advertisement, then I'm not really bait and switching you. I'm just telling you, hey, if you're one of the first 5 lucky guys to get here, you get it. If not, you don't. Online deceptive advertising. They have to be truthful, not misleading. Claims must be substantiated. You have to have evidence. If you say you have a study, you better have that study. It cannot be unfair. I've got to, if I'm selling it, like if I say, well, I make an equivocation or qualification. Yeah, this is going to do such and such, but not if you're doing this. Well, my but not if you're doing this, it has to be in the same font, for example, or it has to be clear to you. For example, and this is not a great example, but when you watch a pharmaceutical, a drug commercial on TV, you're going to hear all these things on the end. Hey, here's the side effects that might occur. For example, And they may have to say that to ensure that it's not deceptive. They haven't left something out that's important. What happens if there is deceptive advertising? I'm going to let you read through that. There's the Federal Trade Commission can actually impose penalties. They can require companies to do certain things. False advertising, also the Federal Lanham Act. This is, even if, say, for example, I have a competitor that injures my business by false advertising or making false accusations against me, well, I have protections under this act because I've lost business. Here's a good one. Telemarketing, okay? You, first, I can't remember what you call them, but you can't, these faxes that are unsolicited, that's unlawful now. So any come in now to your faxes, that's against the law. There's a lot of telephone solicitation laws, FTC. If there's, like, you can't do robocalls anymore. And the U.S. Supreme Court even did that. A company can't just robocall everybody. There have been huge fines against companies. Now, as a practical matter, the way companies get around this is we set up in India or Pakistan, for example. That's a common area, and call into the U.S. and then spoof using such and such a number. So it looks like I'm calling you from an Oklahoma number, a 918 area code, for example. Well, that is against the law, but the theory is from those companies, well, fine, how's the U.S. Federal Trade Commission ever going to come over to India and get us? No, so we're not worried about it being contrary to U.S. law. If you can track down who's doing it, you can see you can actually make money for that, $500 per violation. When you hear telemarketing, this is a nice list of things that they must tell you: what the company is, what they're selling, the material facts, etc. And again, you have certain rights if they're coming after you on telemarketing. Remove your name is a right that you have. You can enter the Do Not Call registry. Google that if you haven't done it. That's a smart thing to do. Many states require people selling telemarketing or advertising to make sure that the specific terms are in the sale. For example, cooling off. Many states, there's some federal statutes in certain products that you can have 3 days to change your mind. That is, if you haven't already received the product and used it and opened it, etc. You're protected that if a merchant says you're going to ship it on such and such day, they have to notify you if they don't ship it on time, and then issue a refund if they don't send it within the specific time. Now, I've got to say that there are Amazon vendors that violate this consistently. So, I mean, they could be sued. I mean, if people took the time and bothered to go after certain vendors, it's a prime thing. But, for example, this is a game that some companies play. You have a protection as a consumer, as a purchaser, household consumer, household purchaser, if you will, that if they say they're going to ship it by such time or you'll get it such time, they will. Well, you'll notice on Amazon that some prime is 2 days, but the vendor will write on there, usually available to ship in 3 weeks. Well, theoretically, they have given you notice that, yeah, you'll get it in 2 days from shipment, but they're not going to get around to shipping it for 3 weeks. Now, if they don't say that, then they could have problems. They may have violated the protections that you have by law. Of course, labeling has to be accurate. Here's some good examples. The fuel economy. When you go buy a vehicle, it's got to say what the MPG, the miles per gallon are, for example. Food labeling, it's got to be fair. It's got to have, these are the calories, these are the, trans fats, these are, etc. Portion size. Who the manufacturer is, where it came from, nutritional content, caloric content, sorry, the FDCA looks over foods and drugs. Let's say, for example, I'm sorry, I'm telling you the ways companies get around it. So the FDCA will regulate over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs, right? So they're not harmful to you. Well, when you go down the supplement aisle, you'll note that they are not regulated by the FDCA. Insert my sarcastic, tone, because they have enough lobbying power to get your senators never to pass to where they have oversight, so they're able to get away with it. So, I mean, you could be getting, theoretically, from unscrupulous providers and supplements, for example, you might be getting chopped up oats that say they're such and such, and that's fraud, but they're not overseen, and the FDCA doesn't inspect their plants, etc. Tainted foods, let's see. FDA takes care of drugs and medical devices. So, for example, if it's an approved medical device you're going in for surgery, it has to be approved and tested before it can be used. Consumer Product Safety Act, this is a good one for us because, as we've referred to this early, it sets minimum requirements for consumer safety. Child seats, cribs, cars. Well, we'll get to cars a little later. But things that you use, being inherently safe. It's a safe world now. I'm by no means Joe regulatory, because I always represent corporations, and we like a moderate amount of regulation. But from a consumer standpoint, it's been very good that we have protections to protect us from defective designs, defective, dangerous products. I'll let you read through the various provisions and the things that the Consumer Product Safety Act requires and can do. I'm going to skip healthcare reform and will not test you on it, because that's changed over time. So we won't even get into that, and that's politically charged as well. Truth in Lending Act. Next time you get a car loan or a loan from a bank, you'll notice you get a form. There's a federal regulation called Regulation Z. You don't need to remember this, but basically you'll get a form. You get a house, and it's a 1, 2, 3 page form, and it literally say, this is the amount you're borrowing. This is the interest rate. If you pay timely, this is the total amount of payments. This is when you have to pay. So this basically has a format that requires lenders to utilize when they lend to you. Now, keep in mind that if you become a lender, you work at a bank, you work on credit sales, you also must comply with these requirements for your customers. I'll let you go through the Truth in Lending Act, Fair Credit Reporting Act. This is an interesting one. There's been some abuses of this, but essentially you have a right for your credit rating, or credit reputation, some would call it, to be accurate, to not be defamed, if you will. So credit reporting agencies are required to follow there are certain requirements imposed upon credit agencies. Let's see, they can only use your information for specific purposes. If you're denied credit, you have the right to find out why. If you tell Equifax, give me my files, if there's something inaccurate, you have the right to report it and demand that it be changed within a reasonable period of time. If they refuse to, you can actually get damages against them. I'm not going to go into the fact. I'm going to let you read the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. You might find that of interest, especially as a student, and usually not the wealthiest people in the world. I remember eating ramen noodles for a lot of years going through college myself. The people that are trying to, debt collectors coming after you for a debt, they must follow certain procedures. For example, I can't call you at your job generally. I can't at home. I can't call you at 2 a.m. I usually have to be convenient time. I generally can't contact third parties. I can't call your parents, say he didn't pay, blah, blah, blah. So these are some of the various requirements that a debt collection agency has to follow. I can't harass or intimidate you. I'll let you see some of these other requirements. What can happen if they don't follow it? Let's jump over to insurance. Now, you're all familiar with insurance. There are different types. You can have health insurance, auto insurance. Businesses also have to engage in various types of insurance. You know what insurance is. You know what a risk is. Your insurance contract will say what kind of risks it covers. For example, as a company, I get a CGL, a comprehensive general liability policy. Well, that protects me if I put out a defective product and somebody sues me, the company. However, if I breach contract and get sued, it doesn't protect me for that. Risk management, you may, as a manager getting your MBA, one of the things you have to get concerned is risk mitigation strategies. And that's everything from let's make sure we put out a product that doesn't kill somebody, to if we do have a mistake, what's the level of insurance we can reasonably afford to protect the company from some catastrophic injury so we don't go broke overnight if there's a $100 million judgment against us. I mean, these are duties that you as a business manager will have. So allocate risk. In the insurance contract, for example, this comprehensive general liability policy or your auto insurance, there are actually two major duties that the insurance company has when you pay your premium. The first one everyone's familiar with is to pay the damages. So if I hit somebody, insurance is going to pay the damages, but there's also a potentially very expensive element. The insurance company is also obligated to provide me an attorney. That's known as the duty of defense. The contract's called a policy. What you pay is called a premium. You're all familiar with that. Let's keep going. Life insurance, you're familiar with what that is. Let's move on to property insurance. As a prudent manager, you will need to consider, does our plant need property insurance? Should that property insurance have interruption of business insurance? Should we have flood insurance? Should we have tornado insurance? So, and at what cost? What risks are we willing to undertake? So you need to consider your property insurance. Well, I don't like the way the book's outlined this because it becomes confusing. Totally separate subject. Let's not look at that. Your application. So you submit an application for insurance as a business. If you say something fraudulent on there, like let's say you went out and you found out you had cancer, so you go buy $1 million life insurance policy, and then they ask about your health, and you say, oh no, I don't have cancer. They could set it aside because you defrauded it. You had something fraudulent in the application. So the insurance company could say, no, you defrauded us. We don't have to pay if you pass away. Make sure when the effective dates are. When does the insurance start? And another important issue is the insurance from my company occurrence or claims made? What the heck does that mean? Well, so I buy this liability policy for these cars that I manufacture. We get sued for an allegedly defective car. If I buy an occurrence policy for such and such a year, let's say the year 2021, then that occurrence policy only covers when there are accidents or occurrences, quote unquote, in 2021, even if I don't get sued till 2022. Conversely, if I buy a claims made policy, which most CGL, most comprehensive general liability policies are, it will say the 2021 coverage is for if you get sued in 2021, even if you made the car in 1990. So that's a claims made, when the claim is made. I'm going to let you read through the various provisions. Interpretation, again, the judge will do something about what's the ordinary meaning. Is it fair to the insurance? And if there's an ambiguity, by the way, you didn't write the contract, the insurance contract, the insurance company did. So if there's an ambiguity, the judge is construing it. He will construe it against the insurance company in your favor generally. Cancellation, you know, you can cancel by not paying. They generally can't cancel you for the period. So if you say, I'm getting a year's worth of insurance, they generally can't cancel on you within that period as long as you continue to pay your premiums. And I can't discriminate against you as an insurance company. I have to act in good faith as the insured, the person who has received the insurance. I have to give you accurate information and sufficient information. I have to pay the premiums. I have to notify you if there's a claim. I have to cooperate with you if somebody sued us and work with you. The insurer, of course, I have the duty to investigate. I have the duty to to defend you, to get attorneys to defend you, and then I have the duties to pay the damages up to the amount. So if you get sued for $2 million, but you only have $1 million insurance, obviously the insurance company only needs to pay out up to $1 million if they lose the case. I'm not going to go, let's see, through these. I'll let you read the different types of life insurance. To me, that looks more like a personal issue and not a business issue, and we're a business school here. So I'm not going to go through those as much, nor fire and homeowners. I think those are more, and automobile, the same thing. I'm going to let you read through them, but I think I'm not going to test you on that because, again, I think that generally is mostly applicable to personal use and not business. Although as a business, if I give you a car, or I have as an employer, if I have a delivery truck, obviously I've got to know these automobile insurance terms. Let's get back to business liability insurance. This is what I call the commercial general liability policy. It's going to protect product liability. For example, if my product causes harm to one of my customers. If I'm a law firm or a doctor, I might get malpractice insurance in case I mess up. It's mandatory that if I have, well, almost every instance, there are some exceptions, but it's generally mandatory that if I have employees, I have to have workers' compensation insurance to cover on-the-job injuries for my employees. All right, that's all for tonight. Thanks.